Okay, hello. I'm Akari. I'm an online Japanese teacher. Today I interview Elizabeth. I met Elizabeth-san because she took my lesson, I don't know, 5 years ago or so. And then later she started her own business in Japan, and she kindly sending her customer when to me when the customer came to Kyoto. And the reason why I wanted to interview Elizabeth is because recently my students who is taking my online Japanese lesson are more serious. 5 years ago, most of my students are just interested to learn Japanese as a hobby. But recently, people are more serious and they want to live in Japan. And what I advise to them is, why don't you start a business? If you cannot find a job in Japan, why don't you start business in Japan? And I always talk about Elizabeth's story. And Elizabeth is very intelligent, inspiring, and brave woman. So I wanted to interview her. So thank you very much, Elizabeth-san, for your time.
I'm honored. It's so exciting to be on Skype with you and to not be worried if I did my homework or not.
Okay, so could you introduce yourself in Japanese, both Japanese and English, please?
はい。皆さん、こんばんは。Be Here の三浦エリと申します。最近結婚しました。それから、私の新しい名前は清水です。Hi everyone, my name is Elizabeth and I've been in Japan for about 5 years. Like Akari said, I met her maybe a few days after I moved. And I got married this past year, and so I have a Japanese last name that I haven't, I put on my meshi, on my business cards, but I haven't officially changed. So I still haven't gotten in the habit of telling everyone that Shimizu is my last name, but I'm very proud to have it.
Great. Thank you. So, let me start interviewing you. So, first of all, what is your initial contact with Japan? I mean, when you were in America?
If I think back to my very, very first contact with Japan, it was probably through Sanrio. But I didn't have Hello Kitty, anything. I had a character named Keropi. I had a change purse from Keropi, and I had no idea what it was related to, but that was my, what I kept coins in all growing up. And then when I was working in San Francisco in my 20s, I was sent to Japan. I was sent to East Asia, China, Japan, and Korea on a research trip. And I spent a little over 2.5 weeks in Japan. And that was all I needed to decide that there was so much that I wanted to learn and I needed to spend more time here. And so I quit my job and moved.
It's surprising. So you mean you spent 1 month and 2 weeks only, and you decided to live here?
Yeah, only 2.5 weeks. Yeah.
2.5 weeks, and that was enough time for you to decide your life?
Yeah, I had a really great 2.5 weeks. I was in Obihiro in Hokkaido, and I was in Nara outside of Kyoto. I was here in Tokyo. I'm driving all through the countryside, interviewing Airbnb hosts and guests about what they did to make people belong. And I was so inspired by the empathy that they exuded and built into their culture. And I just felt that as an individual who cherishes empathy and thinks it's a really great strength, I wanted to be surrounded by that. So that was kind of the impetus.
But when you decide to live in Japan, you quit your job, and then how did you spend your time until you decided to start your business?
I worked with you. No, I moved over and I spent the first few weeks in a really little village called Minami Yamashiro Mura, which is kind of on the boundaries of Mie, Kyoto, and Nara. And it's right by Iga, the ninja village. And then I was, I thought being in the countryside would be great, but it was a really hard adjustment for me to go from living in San Francisco to living in the countryside. So I moved to Tokyo. And when I was traveling for work, I had a translator with me at all times. And so I felt like I had very fluid conversation. I could really talk to people. I felt very at ease. And then when I got here, I was illiterate. I couldn't speak, I couldn't read, I couldn't write, and it was very humbling. And I realized if I wanted to live here, I needed to learn the language. And so I enrolled in language school, and I did that for about 5 months. And while I was in language school, I would take any break that I could to travel. And so I would go to Yakushima, or I would go to Sadogashima, or just like those really far away places. And every trip I took, I fell more and more in love with Japan. So if you do not have a visa to live in the country, you're only allowed to live here for 6 months. And then after that, you have to leave. And so I was confronted with the choice of, how do I want to stay? And I had been working at a startup in San Francisco, and I think I was just really excited about the idea of entrepreneurship and getting to bring my own vision to life. And so I decided to start a company.
I see. So yeah, I want to hear about the studying language part more.
Yes.
I think the the listener are most of the people are Japanese learners. So I think, I don't know, 5 years ago you were taking my lesson, and also you are in the language school in Fukuoka. Is that correct?
I never went to Fukuoka. I mean, I've been to Fukuoka for visiting, but just Tokyo was where I went to language school.
Okay. I maybe misunderstood because you're traveling around.
All the time. Yes, probably I called you from many different places.
Yeah, and I think during your learning language, you went to 88 kasho.
So desu, yes.
So 88 temples in Shikoku.
Yes,
When
that
I
was amazing.
story, I really inspired, and also I really surprised, because for the people who don't know about 88 kasho, it's 88 temples in Shikoku. And Shikoku is, I'm sorry to say, but it's a little bit rural areas. And basically the temple is in the mountain, right?
Yes.
But Elizabeth, you were brave enough to rent a car, and when you are, rural area, and drive by yourself and talk to the people, local people, and then I remember you writing a blog about it.
You helped me write the blog, yeah.
Yeah.
So I got an international driver's license. I read a book. Well, I'll first say that what inspired me to go on the Ohenro was a book by Alex Kerr named Lost Japan. And he's talking about Japanese arts that he's a really big fan of, and also the countryside. And he had bought and restored homes all over the country, the first of which was in Shikoku, or maybe not the first, but one of the early ones, at a place called Chiori. And so I really wanted to go visit Chiori and see what they had done with this old home. And then, also getting to spend time on a pilgrimage, to not be working and to have that much time to just go and focus on being present was such a present, a gift to myself. So I didn't have the whole 66 days that it would take to walk. And I have so much respect for the people who do it on foot. But I was able to do it over the course of 14 days with a car. And that was a super leisurely 14 days, stopping at different places and taking little detours. And it is, a lot of the temples are in the mountains, but some are in the cities too. So I got to see the whole island of Shikoku, and I loved it. It was amazing.
And also they have a habit that the local people, it's like a habit that local people welcome.
Absolutely.
So you were offered some snacks or the foods?
All the time. And everybody was always praying for me, because I was by myself going to these temples, and they were so curious, like, what are you doing here? Did I ever tell you the story of my last day on the pilgrimage?
Last day?
Yeah, I did the pilgrimage in the reverse order. So instead of starting at Temple 1 and going to Temple 88, I started at 88 and worked my way back to 1. And it was a leap year. And so they said it was doubly as lucky if I did it in that order.
Wow.
2020, I think, is the same. So it was 2016 and then 2020.
Yeah.
And so the last day I had 4 or 5 temples to visit. And at the first temple, I ran into this really sweet couple. And oh, are you almost finishing today? Yes. We had a little bit of conversation. And so then at the next temple that day, I saw them again.
Oh.
And then at the third temple, I didn't see them. And I think I might have stopped for lunch or, like we had just gotten off our schedule.
Right.
And then I didn't see them at the fourth temple that day. And then I pulled into the parking lot of the last temple that I was supposed to visit for the day. And they were waiting for me there. And they were so worried that something might have happened to me while I was on the journey. So they were waiting until they saw me before they left. And I just felt so taken care of and so loved and looked after.
Yeah,
So,
I remember the story. Yes.
Yes,
I
they're so kind.
I can imagine their feelings.
Yeah.
Worried too. すごいよね。Then you did lots of travel around the world, around Japan, especially very special areas, very not touristic but very special, deep meaning areas. During your trip, you decided to build your business. How did
Exactly. Yeah, I was reading a book called Springboard. And this was a book to help you redefine your definition of success and try to align it with both your personal and professional goals. So this was a book that I was reading all through the 5 months of language school, and I was doing the exercises in it to identify strengths and to identify intrinsic motivators and to identify opportunities for yourself to start your own business or, figure out which path you want to take. And I knew that whatever job I did, I wanted it to include learning, that I would always be learning something new. That's very rewarding for me. And getting to have deep engagement with, the people here and folks from abroad. And so I decided to start my travel company, and it was a pretty big jump, but I got a lot of help along the way. I had a lawyer. One of the first people, my sister-in-law taught on the Marshall Islands, and a fellow teacher that was there named Kyoko was living in Japan. And so she lent me her phone number because you can't get a phone number before you get your visa. And, so all of these crazy things that I did start a business on my own, but I was only able to do that because of so much help that I received from everyone else around me.
Yeah, one thing, there are many things I supplies supplies about you and respect about you, but one thing, you have a very good connection. You met very nice people. How did you build a connection with, especially good, like Japanese people or like international people who lives in Japan? How did you build the connection?
Good question. I'd have to go back to my diaries to see, exactly what it was. But I went to a lot of events, and you would meet one person and then they would introduce you to other people. So I felt like it was just kind of a chain of goodwill. And I also think because I had some specific interests that when I would go to an event, the person and I had something in common. We weren't just meeting to meet. It was, like we both really care about rural regeneration. So you get to talk to them about the experiences that they've had and the experiences that you've had. And I think that was probably, I agree, Akari, that I've met the best people, and I don't know what the secret to that was.
Wow. And so I think, so that time you got entrepreneurship visa?
Yes.
I think it was a
It
hard
was called the business manager visa.
business manager visa.
Yeah.
Could you explain about the visa a little bit? Because I think some people are interested to get that one.
Absolutely. So I think the biggest thing is you need about 5 million yen in capital. And then you need a business plan, and the business plan, talks about how you're different, how you plan to grow over the course of the coming years, why Japan, why you, what is your previous experience. And then you need an office space, and you need a tax accountant, But I have to say that everything that you need is clearly written online.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just, as long as you can go through and show those steps and meet that criteria, then you submit your application, you get your certificate of eligibility, and then the next time you come in the country, you can switch to your visa. So for me, that process took, gosh, maybe 5 or 6 months. I don't remember exactly how long, but it doesn't need to take that long.
Oh, really?
I think I had gone out of the country for a wedding of a friend, I think, and so I had slowed down the process by about a month.
Mm-hmm.
But I've heard of people who can do it a little faster.
So if they said, okay, how long your visa?
Well, the first visa I got was just 1 year. And then they reevaluate, when you apply. And so the best thing that you can show is that you are paying your taxes and that your business is making money so that you can support yourself. I think that's what they're, really evaluating, like how sustainable is this person, and is this company going to be able to, keep them living well while they're here in Japan.
I was misunderstood that you got entrepreneurship visa. Is that different one?
I don't know if it's different. I think, because it's been 5 years.
Maybe new one.
Yeah, so I wonder if they might have changed the name.
I see, but
I also heard there's a 6-month visa for individuals who want to start a company. So it's like an entry. So rather than just having the tourist visas, you get some kind of preliminary visa in order to get all your paperwork together so that you can apply to start your business.
I see. Yeah, because, like I said, more people are interested in, I feel more people are interested to live in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of the reason is because some of them already travel in Japan and they love food and the people. Mm-hmm. At the same time, compared to like San Francisco, New York, these kind of cities, the company salary, like Japanese company salary, is not that high.
Yeah.
So, and also finding a job in Japan is a little bit hard. If they bring their own business, their work remotely to Japan, they might can do that.
Totally. And there's so many different visas. I think talking to an immigration lawyer can be super helpful, because let's say you've worked for 10 years or more in America or wherever you're coming from, Germany, Latin America, other parts of Asia, Africa, wherever, there is a visa for skilled labor. And so somebody who's had 10 years of experience in their field and then coming to Japan to try and do that same thing, they can get that visa. Or if you're coming to study the arts, you can get a visa to be an apprentice to a certain artisan, or it really depends on what your focus is and what you're trying to do.
I see. Wow. And then after you start business, from the beginning you can get a customer?
Well, luckily, it was slow. The first year was definitely slow, but I had worked in advertising prior to working at Airbnb, and I had been keeping a blog about my time in Japan. And one of my old coworkers, one of my first clients was an old coworker who asked me to do some research. My background is in market research, so she asked me to do some research for her here in Japan. And so I was able to charge them for that. And so I did actually a few corporate jobs doing research before I switched into doing full-time leisure tourism for inbound. So you have to be flexible. It's kind of like you have a vision for what you hope your company will deliver for people, and you just kind of have to say yes to those first few jobs as they come in, to be like, yep, okay, we need to pay the bills and keep things afloat. But that's also why it's so helpful to have the capital, because you can live off of 5 million yen. You can pay your rent and you can pay your health insurance, and you can eat. And so as long as you have that cushion, you can probably make it through your first year as you're building up your client base.
I see. And I think I know second, third year maybe, because is that the last year is second, third year? I don't know. When did you start your business?
I started it in 2016. So right after, yeah, I had been here for just about 6 months.
Okay, wow, very quick process. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, my business has been alive for 4 years. It's crazy.
Okay, yeah, and last year especially you sent me a lots of very good customers. Yes.
Yes, I'm
Yeah,
glad to hear that.
and we are very excited, and I'm very happy that you sent me a very good gift. But unfortunately, this situation changed, the Corona COVID-19. So, do you have any plan after this? Like after this situation changed, do you be?
I I have been thinking about that a lot in terms of um, what kind of pivot would need to occur with my business. And I think it's a little too soon to tell what the international travel market will look like because, it could be restricted to certain countries or not others. And so I think for the time being, I've just been using my time to study and read and dig into some of the cultural pieces that I've always been interested in, but haven't had the time to really explore.
Mhm.
And then, we have ideas about like a project that AG and I want to work on together. And so it's just a matter of, when's the right time to do that. But for now, I've just been accepting that, I don't need to force some kind of tourism on people, and that, we'll figure out what fits the situation once we have a little bit more information.
Yeah, and now you got the partner, life partner. So you're
Yes, it's helpful. It's good to have somebody to brainstorm with. We're always throwing ideas at each other. Oh, what about this? What about that? One
yeah.
of the things that we really want to do is start a retreat center in Japan. And that's something that, we have experience with, and we'll see, we just are, that's something that'll take a long time to build.
Mhm.
But, we're continuing to explore different places around the country to see like where it would be a good fit and what
Mhm.
kind of offerings and all that kind of stuff. So that's a long-term dream.
Sorry, trees enter. What is that?
Retreat center.
Mhm.
So let's over New Year's I went on a 10-day silent meditation retreat in
Ah,
Thailand.
yes, 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 yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So
Oh,
build something like that here.
I see. That's great. Yeah, I wanna try.
Totally.
なるほど. I see. So yeah, thank you. And also I want to ask you for Japanese learners or who are interested in living in Japan. Do you have any advice? Someone who wants to live in Japan in
Well,
lifetime wise and also like language wise?
so language and life, the
Mhm.
advice for that. Okay, so I would say for language, you have to be responsible for figuring out what kind of learner you are. If you're an audio visual, do you need a traditional classroom setting? Are you studious enough to hold yourself accountable outside of a classroom setting? What will help reinforce your language? Do you need to be going to bars and talking to people? Do you need to go on hikes and talk to people? What's the best way to use your language?
Mm,
And why do you want to study?
I
And
see.
I think sharing the why with your teachers, it's like, well, I hope to be able to conduct interviews with monks when I meet them, or I want to be able to talk to my mother-in-law, whatever your personal goal is. I think being very clear about what that is, it will help people correct you, and just like they're there to support you in your learning, and you just have to help them understand like why you want to do that.
Yeah, that's a great advice.
And then for life,
Mhm.
I would say that there's so many systems that you're not familiar with when you first move to Japan,
Hmm.
and that it might be frustrating because you're like, why, this doesn't make any sense, like why do I need to check out of, they have these city ward offices, why do I need to check out of one city ward and check into another city ward? Why can't I check out and check in at the same time? Like, you might get frustrated, or why do I have to renew my patient card when
Mm,
I go to the doctor because I haven't been there for a year? Or you just, It's something new that you haven't experienced yet. And you just have to accept it as an opportunity to learn more about how the culture operates and to not be frustrated that, well, where I come from, we do it differently. Because I think that that would really wear on you and take away from the positive aspects of why you're in the country.
I see.
And so just be patient and know that there's nothing wrong with not knowing the system and that people are so helpful. So if you just ask, like, if you show up at your ward office and say, like, I don't know how to do this, can you help me? Like, there will be somebody there to help you and you guys can figure it out together. So that's always great.
I see. And I forgot to add, but the last one is about the advice for job, because you decide to build your own business, but like people who are thinking about, I want to move to Japan, but how can I make money? What should I do? Is there anything
Yeah.
for that?
Well, it depends on what their background is, what experience are they bringing to Japan? And then, that could definitely guide who they should talk to and who they should meet. But I think coming to Japan when you're not on holiday and coming to Japan with the concrete goal of making connections with people in your industry or field or in the desired industry or field that you hope to work in can help you decide, are there companies in Japan doing things that I'm interested in, or do I need to start my own company in order to do the work that I want to do?
Mm.
And I heard a really great quote, Akari, you might know this, but it was from people like international developers. And they said, if you fall in love with a community, then, whatever work you do will benefit them because it's coming from a genuine place of love for them. But if you fall in love with your idea for that community, it could bring destruction. And that's just the idea that, if you're providing a service, you need to make sure that it matches the people that you're providing it to and not that you're forcing an idea upon them. So doing that research, doing that due diligence, relationships are so important in Japan. And introduction goes such a long way. So it might feel like it takes more time, but you just need to spend the time to make those relationships, make those connections, and really invest in them. And that'll help you get where you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, like you did, I mean, you didn't do it on purpose, probably. You just did it as a result. But if you have enough time and money to travel or spend time a year or so, you might find new ideas or new.
Exactly. Yeah,
So
but that's a luxury. Not everybody has that. I mean, that's a lot. But
yeah, looking at you, I'm really surprised because at the beginning, like when you start taking my lesson, I think you were just saying, I just came here for holiday or research or something.
I had just finished the Airbnb project. Yeah.
And then gradually you're traveling around special unique places. And then a little bit later you start business and I said, wow. And then business successful. And then you start sending me a guests. And then you got married with Japanese man and lots of life change happened.
Yeah.
So like, wow, so many stories happen in front of me, kind of.
Yes, I've grown up in front of your eyes.
Mm.
Well, they say that we overestimate what we can do in 1 year and we underestimate what we can do in 3. So
Mm.
I would say the same thing about my language learning goals, that I had wanted to be at a certain level in that first year and it was just way too ambitious. I did not get there, but if you're willing to stick with it and carry on, then, after 3 years, you might be in a whole different place. So
Yeah, especially in your case, you have a strong motivation.
yeah. And actually I was thinking of going back to language school during this coronavirus time because it's a great, it's like I don't have as much pressure to be working all the time. So I could actually go back to the classroom, which I think would be really helpful.
Yeah, and you write a really wonderful blog. So I want you to write it in Japanese too.
Right? Me too. I would love that, that I would be able to send my newsletter in both Japanese and English. That would be great.
Your adventure, your all adventure, you can sell it as a book. Or,
Someday I would love that.
yeah, or I mean, I'm not good at reading much, so I want to hear the story by audio.
Audiobook, yeah.
You can about the 88 kasho or the Naoshima or Yakushima trip, or like you went to Hokkaido Islands to like
Rishiri and yeah, Rebun. Yeah,
so
yeah. So many beautiful places around this country, Nate.
so many places and so many beautiful places, but which I've never been actually. The places you've been was never I haven't actually.
But it's so different when you live in a place, you know, your time on holiday is normally spent going outside, you know, so you've traveled to other places around the world, but, you know,
Yeah, it's
haven't gotten to explore your own country as much.
right. But it's really nice to know the places through you, you know.
Thanks.
You know about Lebun, but I learned it from you. It's really amazing.
Next month the wildflowers will be blooming, so you should pop on up.
Yes. Okay, so thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your wonderful story, Elizabeth-san.
It was great to chat with you, Akari. Thank you.
Yes, I'm sure your story is very, very inspiring for the people. So I will share it with especially for the people who is taking my lesson. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
ありがとう。
ありがとうございます。よろしくお願いします。